It is 6:32 p.m. and I will call this regular meeting of the Waterbury Selectboard to order for Monday, October 20th, 2025. As noted, the municipal manager's laptop does not work with an owl. So in an effort to facilitate public engagement, we have the owl plugged into my computer labeled Steel Community Room. It's not my preference, so hopefully we will have a resolved solution for future meetings, but that is where we're at right now. For tonight, the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. I will note that when I was making the agenda, I conveniently wrote 7:25 instead of 7:45 for Conservation Commission. If we got through local option tax policy in 5 minutes, that would be astounding. But the first item of business would be for us to approve the agenda. I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Tori, second by Kane. Any further discussion?
I'll offer a friendly amendment to extend the time period and the liquor option tax to 20 minutes.
Are you good with that?
You understand that the rest of the times will follow, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Kane, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor with the friendly amendment to adjust the Conservation Commission to 7:45?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have an agenda. Next up is the consent agenda items. We have the minutes of the select board meeting from September 29th, 2025, from the meeting October 6th, 2025, tobacco and tobacco substitute endorsement for Arandis, and approved road closure of Bidwell Lane from Stowe Street to Stowe Street Cafe on December 14th. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second. Motion by Kane, second by Tori. Any further discussion? I'm gonna abstain because I wasn't here on the 29th. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I'm abstaining. All right, next up is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone who would like to speak to something that's not already on the agenda that went out. If anyone had a weird printer, I would also note the bottom line is next meeting of Waterbury Select Board, Monday, November 3rd, 2025, and then I got chopped off on some printers. Is there anyone in the room or online who would like to speak on public comment? Sandy, come on up, and we just ask that folks come up and sit here so that the hour that we have worked on can pick you up, hopefully for folks at home.
I just have a quick question and I wonder if it's okay if I address it on the environment. I just wondered, I know there's been over, some changeover in staff, but it's the third, past the third, and I just wondered when we can see a budget status update and with the actual numbers for the budget. Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else who would like to speak on public comment? Valerie and the question.
Good evening, thank you. So my comment is about the rental registry. So I got mailed the card like I think 2,000 people did back in March or April. So the link didn't work back then. So I did send an email to Mike Bishop and I didn't hear back. But I kept trying. It didn't work. So I think when I paid my property taxes in August, I did see Neil was in the office and I told Neil I was having a really hard time getting on to the registry. And he said, yes, there's a problem with the link. So that was on the day that I paid my taxes in August, right? But then I was at the Housing Task Force meeting on Thursday and it resurfaced in my brain to like check out the rental registry again. And I was able to get in, but then it wouldn't take my parcel ID. So I still have not registered my property. So I hope that you already know that the link's not working. The link works, but then it wouldn't take a parcel. It kept wanting me to do more and I couldn't do more. So I'm bringing that up because I think it's important with the proposal for a short-term rental registry to be capped at 80 units. The proposal came up with the Housing Task Force. So I'm bringing that up because I hope that you're not going to be fining people for unpermitted units when they can't register their properties. Because I think the proposal said a fine of 1,000, a fine of 1,800, barred from applying for a permit. So my comment is just brought to my attention, and I hope that you make sure that your registry works before you start finding people for not
Yeah,
registering.
you're not the first person that's brought that up to me, at least in the last few days. So
Great,
I've heard from a few people.
thank you.
Chris, and then Amy, I see you online.
Just a question and a comment. Now that the Bolton pit's reopened, is there consideration to revisit, any access to materials for our roads and clear sand and such from them? We are buying from them, okay? Also less. What's that? Well, it's still less. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if the price difference, I don't know what. You know, the stuff that they were putting on Perry Hill, I happened to be going around there to downtown there for something and, well, we're buying it for sand. I know that, I don't believe I've seen any places yet from that from other material, but I've seen. Yeah, I think the product they were putting on Perry Hill, from what I understand, was from McCullough and, we stopped talking to Stewart there. Nobody was really truly impressed with the quality of it. And I know that things have, they've improved their aggregate crushing and screening down there from what it used to be. I think they have more to offer. I don't know that they probably changed the quality too much, but from a cost standpoint, I don't know if McCullough's, you know, driving all the way to Southbury to get product versus down here. And then the price of the product itself, the, you know, simple analysis will determine whether, and I suspect it will be beneficial to go back down here. So that's a good thing. Second thing I was a little disappointed with was all this amount of signage that had been put on Gupta Road recently. It seemed like an absurd amount to direct people to take corners and direct people that there was already a sign by my house that said narrow bridge, and now we've got arrows on both sides pointing. Two stop signs at every stop. Almost like, to me, for lack of a better word, and continually dumbing down of society to have to tell them. It's like getting in your vehicle when you're starting up and it tells you everything to do before you even take off. You know, it's like, when are we gonna learn on our own that instead of bastardizing our landscape, it just kind of, to me, it's just a little bit overkill. So that is what I thank you.
I had Amy next online. Amy, go ahead.
Hi there. I have a handful of questions, and then just guide me if now's the right time to expect answers or not. So this is coming from me as a resident. As I've had some interactions with town staff for a variety of different reasons over the last week or so, I was made aware, I believe, if I have the information correct, there's been 5 resources that either have resigned or they become vacated. So I was hoping that you could help provide, and these questions are more in general around efficacy and, you know, succession planning. I was hoping to get a general overview of, like, you know, what's going on with those resignations or removals. Are there specific reasons? Things more specifically that that could help understand from to the public point of view. And then closing out with, are there specific tasks that you are, sorry, the actions that are being taken to ensure we've got those critical resources backfilled so that they don't have a negative effect on town operations? Or if there's any interim appointments or temporary placements or things of that nature.
I can talk to you offline about that, Amy. One of those positions I hope to fill really quickly. I hope to make a job offer to someone tomorrow about one of the positions, and the other ones I'll give you a call tomorrow about.
I'm sorry, who was speaking? I can't hear very well. Oh, Tom. Okay. All right, so did you say, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time. Are you saying you
I think
offline? Is that
one of the vacancies we have is 99% filled, and I hope to have someone starting here in a few weeks. I hope to have the announcements and some of the others pretty quick.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Is there something in the room? Anyone else have a comment? All right, seeing none, sorry, the agenda. We will go to our next item, which is Stanley Lawson update, and we'll turn it over to Tom and continue to work to try and fix the item.
Sure, not a dramatic update. Haven't had time to meet with DPW and our council, that our council was out for a little bit of time, so I've got a meeting on my agenda with those parties for this Thursday to begin working towards some form of development agreement. The exact format, I think, to be discussed and determined. But in general, an agreement that gives the developer an 18-month exclusivity period is something they requested. In essence, the developer is not going to invest in the site on planning, engineering, permitting, all of these things without having some guarantee that, in fact, their offer to buy it would be honored again. So that would be part of the basis for the agreement, but once that agreement is made, that would come before the select board to consider. So that's gonna be a little bit of time. It's not a simple agreement per se. It's not gonna be one meeting, so I expect it'll be, likely a month to 6 weeks to bring something before this board for consideration. So it's gonna take a little bit of time just to get to the first agreement where. And that's the update. So fairly quick in my end, but just wanted to remind people this is a marathon.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing. Could you just finish that last statement you said? I don't know if it's the placement of the mic, or it sounds a little muffled on my end.
Just saying, my last statement was just, this is a long process. It's a marathon, so it's gonna be a while to get to an agreement here and in theory to get beyond that whole project.
Okay, thank you. I have a clarifying question. So was the decision just to proceed with?
Amy, I'm gonna wait for board questions and then I'll go to public questions.
Oh, sure, of course. Sorry. Yep, thanks.
Yeah. Board members, Roger, go ahead.
Yeah, I got in touch with a friend of mine who works in housing in Burlington, Chittenden County, just to be assured that other developers had seen the request for qualifications. And she said that it was widely publicized and discussed in Chittenden County, and that she thought that the number of qualified developers had taken a look at it, but that the cost of building these days and the ability to get the recovery of your costs through the market rentals was such that not that many would be interested. So she was not surprised to see that there was just one applicant.
Other board questions or comments?
What is the timeline to getting to signature on the 18-month agreement?
A month to 6 weeks is my estimate at this point.
Are there any questions or comments? And we have some in the room. I will note after our meeting at the fire station, I received feedback about audio volume. So we don't have mics here tonight, but I will say to staff and board members, if we can all do our best to speak up so everyone can hear us. Amy, thank you for your patience. You had a follow-up question. Please go ahead.
I think Roger addressed some of it. My question was going to be clarifying the quantity of potential vendors or builders, developers associated with this. And I just wanted to ask, or is it been placed where the solicitation has gone broadly? But Roger addressed it. I think he spoke to somebody of reference.
Thanks, Amy. Folks in the room who'd like to speak? Yes, Pete, come on up.
How you doing? So I had two questions that maybe you guys can help clarify. One is the Act 250 process. I know there's been some questions on it, but I got in touch with Susan Bard. I believe she's the District 5 commissioner. And she said that parcel is definitely under Act 250. because it was subdivided in 2017, and actually had a part of that zone. So there's an amendment that has to be put on in addition to all that. So, I mean, I don't know, I know there was some confusion, so I'm just kind of offering what I've found out. I don't know if I'm incorrect in that, but that's what she.
So my understanding, it's part of the broader state parcel, which has an existing Act 250 permit. So subdividing that is a modification of the Act 250 permit. Developing it beyond that is not something I've done a whole lot of research on. That's the developer's responsibility to handle that permit. I'm not sure if a permit would be required or not. The rules have changed a lot lately.
Okay, yeah, because I did read the permit, and it's, I mean, again, you know, the way I understand it, whether what's changed or what hasn't, is that when they redid it, when they took down the buildings in 2021, the plan was to turn that into green space for flood mitigation, primarily to protect the part of the state office complex in the neighborhood. So I just wanted to kind of, I hope people are aware that that was the intention of the state when they did all that work. And again, you know, just looking at the flood mitigation. The other one was actually subdividing in the law that subdivides it. So there was some statements, and Tom Stevens said this on October 6th, was that if we don't buy it as a town, then it's kind of up for sale for anyone, and that's not true. If we don't exercise our option to buy it, then the head of buildings and grounds does not have the authority to sell it to them. Right, so I can't call up and say, hey, I have to buy it, something like that. A new law has to be written.
Yeah, that's entirely correct.
Yeah, so I just wanted that to be clear, because some of the fear that I feel like was being pushed is that if we don't purchase it, then anyone can come in, they're gonna put a Walmart in or something like that, right? And that's just not the way it is, and so again, I just wanted to be clear on that we aren't up against a wall.
And just to comment on that, so you are correct, the bill was to sell the property to Waterbury. However, my impression, so I could be wrong, this is my impression, the state holds on to property really closely once they own it for a couple of really good reasons. The first is when they try to buy property to build something, it's usually something controversial. They're not building a whole lot of DMTs, but there seems to be a constant challenge about things like heat detention facilities. Or shelters, and so those tend to generate controversy, and so they get community challenges, they oftentimes pay above market. So my just understanding of their process and their history is they won't agree to sell property unless they truly believe it's surplus. And they did not agree to give it to us for free because they thought it had value and every taxpayer of Vermont deserved to be paid for that value. So that being said, if they've agreed, in essence, maybe not in exact speech, but in essence that it's surplus, I suspect, again, just me, I suspect that if Waterbury did not exercise its option, that the state would, the Commissioner of Building and General Services is likely to go back to the legislature with the request to sell it. In part because I don't think it's a great effort on their part to sell it because the subdivision is ready. It's certainly revenue. So that's just my suspicion about what would happen if you did not exercise that option. Am I biased? Sure. Am I entirely wrong? Sure.
Right. Well, and I think, you know, just saying that only one developer really was interested in it, or even, you know, was looking at it because it's in the flood. I mean, that's, you know, just put that, it's going back out there. Thank you.
Other folks, yeah, no.
Harry Shepherd, Tom, you mentioned the development agreement. Might include some provision that obliges the town to sell the property for this developer's investment. Are you envisioning any other obligations that town will be taking on as in part of this development agreement?
Certainly grant writing could be something that's discussed in there. There's some obligations on our part, whether it's writing the grant formally or simply administering it or being a caster and the for funding. And I think that's not likely, that's a certainty. If there's going to be an affordable housing component on that site, those projects don't happen without public funding. We have talked about having a public park on that site. And whether or not that's subdivided, owned by the town in the end, or whether or not there's some form of long-term lease where we maintain it, but we've talked about that, and then it's certainly some of the cost to the town. Nothing comes to mind, about move on that. Certainly not offhand. That being said, we're at the very beginning of the process. Now there is a storm sewer line that runs right in the middle of the site, and it's our intention that if that line needs to be relocated, that is not Waterbury taxpayer expense.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're still in Stanley Lawson. Is there any other public questions or comments? Okay, Chris, Valerie, and then in the back. Go ahead, Chris.
Just a couple points of clarification. The other night when you gave your analysis on tax revenue projection for that building proposal, the 250,000 per unit was what you were thinking that the town appraisal rate would be per unit ballpark?
It's about what it would be now.
Yeah, before reappraisal.
Right.
Okay. And your tax revenue projection, which was what, 120,000, something like that? Yeah, was that based on the current tax rate?
That's right.
You recall what our police department or public safety budget is it around 400?
Closer to 5.
Closer to 5, okay. So again, I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the fact that I'm not against a housing project anywhere. What I'm more concerned about is going into deficit spending by creating these projects. You have to understand that. Because that's no good for the people that are here and for the people that will be coming here. I hope all those concerns will be flushed out. I assume they will. Because if it's costing us close to $500,000 for 2 police officers now, and there was a suggestion that through all this development and growth, that we may end up having to hire 2 more police officers and perhaps a full-time fire department member. Disregarding anything else that, you know, will come from the impacts of growth. That 120,000 is gone and then some in one fell swoop, with 1 police officer. So there has to be more revenue projection. You're never going to convince me, because I was actually on the radio today and there was a gal on there from Vermont Commerce talking about this specific thing. And I said, there's nowhere in the state where, because she was touting the same narrative of growth, you know, helps tax rates. There's nowhere in the state that, and I said to her, prove it to me. There's nowhere in the state where that pans out. And I guess I'm concerned about the board's objectives to moving forward with these types of projects. I would love a conversation with somebody to explain to me why they insist on moving forward with these types of things. We're told we're in an emergency housing crisis. I need that to be explained to me, what that means. And at the detriment of our communities across the state, why the necessity to continue to move forward with such an impactful, financially impactful proposals.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
I've got 2 more folks and we're a little over, so go ahead, Valerie, and then someone else.
Thank you. I'm just here for a clarification of what was said. It sounded like I heard that the developer, DEW, wants a confirmation or promise that we'll do what? Do what? I'm sorry. I think I missed that. Did they want a confirmation, a guarantee or something?
I think the next step that was being discussed, and Tom correct me, was in an option to negotiate an 18-month exclusivity, so they could do further research and study. Knowing that there wouldn't be an option for another developer, were we to pursue that.
Okay, do we own it?
No, we have an option.
Right, so does that make sense? How can we promise something that we, on property we don't own?
We also have an option to purchase it from the state.
And that's up in 6 months.
That's something that they've said to me, they're happy to expand.
And when's the 6 months up?
I believe in fall, but.
Like
we've
next
had
fall?
discussions.
Like right now?
I believe this year, but there's options to expand, and they have signaled to you it's not a concern to extend this for a long period of time, and understand this is a process.
So that extension be part of a public open meeting? Or will you just do it? Will you sign something? Is this gonna happen without us knowing?
It's been public meetings before,
Will it be signed for an extension?
I would assume so, unless the board says otherwise.
It would have to be approved by the board.
At a meeting? On an agenda at a meeting? Right, thank you.
Is there someone in the back with me? Okay, sorry, I thought I saw you walked in. Is there anyone else on Stanley Lawson? Anyone online?
I have a question. There was a comment, when we were meeting at the firehouse, about a, sewer line, on Park Row that was, ancient and failing. Do we have an update on that and how that would influence, this project?
I do not, I do recall having a deep conversation about that. I had, I thought it was a section sewer line that just wasn't done as part of the street project, but I don't recall if it's on Park Row or is it in fact Main Street. When I can get an update for you, I just don't have it.
Okay, next meeting.
It's Park Row. That's what you said, that's the market making funds. Clay is starting them.
The concern is if that's what we're relying on, you know.
Yeah.
It needs upgrade, but we'll get an update. Thank you.
So can you next meeting and then the board? Yeah. If you wanna just come up, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
I'm Jack over on Randall Street. I'm just curious, at what point in this process would the issue of increased traffic volume be addressed? Would that be something that we would, that you all would be addressing and laying out a plan for before, you know, ground is broken on something like this? I mean, where in the long marathon does that get brought up?
I think relatively soon.
Yeah, we heard about it on October 6th, and there were some good ideas pitched back and forth. I mean, the conversation's already started, but I would assume before, like 18 months is up. We figured that out.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, that's kind of my greatest concern with this whole thing is, you know, we all know what downtown traffic is like already, at rush hour. And the idea of adding this level of density, to that location, I think could create a real issue. And as much as the businesses downtown, I'm sure would benefit from the increased foot traffic of people who live there. I don't think we can discount the impact that that kind of congestion will have in terms of dissuading people from the outskirts of the community driving in, finding parking, and patronizing those businesses. So I just want to make sure that that's something that's top of mind as we go forward on this. Thank you.
Yes, it's 7:01, so I'm inclined to call it and say you can definitely expect this on the November 3rd agenda. For further updates at that point. Our next item is to approve letters of support for Lake Champlain Basin Program grant application. Our flood grant writing consultant, is that your title?
Yeah.
Dana Allen is here, plus our municipal manager. There's copies of them posted, but these are for 3 separate grant applications, and Dana, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, so Dana Allen speaking as a contractor on grant management for flood resilience. We have the opportunity to apply for 3 grants that are coming up, sponsored by the Lake Champlain Basin Program. One is for a study of dam removals, for the Colbyville upper and lower dams. So on Thatcher Brook above the Shaws, there are two remnant concrete structures. They're both partially breached. Basically, want to look into those to see if they have any flood resilience benefit. We are proposing to partner with Municipal Natural Resources Conservation District. They are the ones writing the grant. So we would be essentially providing a letter of support. And the scope of work is essentially to evaluate the flood resilience potential of those. What happens in a critical failure? Do they impound, do they impound water upstream, so back towards Guptill Road along Route 100? Does that have an impact during times of flooding? Has this dam affected the stream longitudinal profile such that it maybe threatens Route 100 at times through bank slumping and things like that? And so that would be a study of those dams and then removal design to 100%. It's not an implementation grant, it's purely a planning and design grant. So I don't know, what's the board's pleasure as to how to proceed? Do you want to go one by one? Do you want me to give an overview of all of these? What's easiest for you? Dan?
I like overviews.
Okay, I can talk through all three. So that's the dam removal one, and again, Winooski NRCD would be the applicant, we would be a partner on that, so the town needs to show support of that for that particular grant application, makes it a stronger application. The next one, this one isn't due at the end of October, rather sometime mid-November. It's basically a partnership with Vermont Land Trust to investigate and potentially place a conservation easement on the Randall Meadow property, using VLT as the easement holder. And so essentially that grant, they would apply for that money, VLT would apply for that money. Again, we're a partner on that, so we would need to express some level of support for it. Why are we potentially pursuing a conservation easement on Randall Meadow? The floodplain conservation project there, floodplain reconnection project there is important. It's expensive, so $4 million nut potentially. If we get some sources of federal funding, maybe we're made in the shade. If we don't, we're looking at alternative sources of funding. One of those sources of funding is the Clean Water Formula Grant, which is a Vermont DEC in-state pot of money. They pay for phosphorus reduction. And so it's not entirely accurate to say they don't care about flood resilience, but what they prioritize is phosphorus reduction. And reconnecting floodplains has a phosphorus reduction component, which is important. If we put this property under easement, in addition to the physical changes we're proposing for that property, you actually get a bit of a phosphorus credit bonus because you essentially enhance the lifespan of the project, right? So we do an actual thing by lowering the surface that sequesters phosphorus, put an easement on it, and they essentially give you a bonus of some sort based on the type of easement and the lifespan of the project that's expected to give you a little bit more P credit, which actually essentially gooses your cost benefit ratio. So which means we might be eligible for more money. That particular fund of money, I think currently they have about $2 million to spend. We could suck up all of that in one project. So they're not going to do that. So we're probably in the 500 to $750,000 range as far as what they're likely to give us. So that's a big project. So we kind of need to prove that like we deserve it. And a conservation easement is one way in which we can essentially make that happen, right? It makes us more attractive. So partnering with VLT, they applied a Lake Champlain Basin program to get roughly $100,000 to cover their time and effort to put this easement on the property. Waterbury doesn't really pay anything. Like I don't think in fact, we don't pay anything. That covers their work. We just have to be a project partner. Yes, there's staff time. Yes, there's admin time involved, but essentially we're getting their work covered under a grant. So that's the VLT easement on Randall Meadow. The final grant is one that I'm proposing as the grant consultant that we would apply for as a town. And this grant is to the Healthy Ecosystems program, Lake Champlain Basin program. That essentially would allow us to apply for a planning, design, and public outreach effort related to 5 different sites around town. So Randall Meadow, subject of its own planning and design grant. What this grant would potentially allow us to do is look at other sites throughout town. And so I think I've in there mentioned Ice Arena, that parcel, so essentially town-owned parcels, plus some landowners who have expressed willingness to potentially talk to us. So Ice Arena, DAC Row, wastewater treatment plants. Blanking, Moran Field, which is a private property. What's the last one? Who's got it in front of their eyes? Duxbury, right, Duxbury, thank you. The Duxbury Land Trust, formerly State Farm Field. 3 of those parcels are town or utility district owned. 2 of them are not town or utility district owned, but the private property owners, we've had conversations. They've expressed preliminary willingness to talk about this and potentially move forward. They also have a sewer line running through their property, so the town already has a bit of an interest there. Duxbury Land Trust and the state office or state farm, they've expressed a willingness to work with us. There is an easement on that property that does allow for floodplain restoration and management. So I think these are some pretty solid sites to investigate, survey, hydrologic modeling, hydraulic modeling, floodplain reconnection design up to 100%. So essentially construction ready plans, permit applications. So readying some of these shovel ready projects, or basically getting shovel ready projects, and then lining up implementation funding as those progress. And there's a variety of reasons we want to have shovel ready projects, but I think this is a good hedge against funding vagaries right now. The other part of that grant is to essentially do public education and outreach, both to the general public and to property owners directly. So a variety of up and down the Municipal River, which they may be interested in participating in floodplain reconnection in the future. Not a lot of outreach has been done to them yet, so this would pay for someone's time to go and do that. And then putting together a series of, or a bundle of materials to do public outreach, as well as some meetings, some site visits and things like that. Because I think we've heard from the public that they want to know what's going on. And so this gives us a chance to fund those activities, organize those activities and make that happen. And I actually think that's a really critical part of this grant application is ensuring that we are saying, hey, these are all of the things we're looking at. These are the timelines associated. These are potential costs as we, sharpen the pencil on that sort of thing. So that's a really good opportunity for us. So again, we would be the applicant to LCBP. Obviously, we'd like a letter of support from the select board. I'll be doing the same for planning commission. That's my spiel. I'll answer questions a lot.
Can you start with what LCBP is? For
Lake Champlain-
those who aren't up on the acronym?
Didn't I say it at the beginning? Lake Champlain Basin Program. Sorry, I apologize.
And just Tom, do you have anything to add or offer as town manager?
Yeah, the only thing is on the easement for Randall Meadow. We're a little concerned about that because the easement adds another legal layer with the federal grants. My suggestion in the letter, the first sentence of the second paragraph, the town is interested in partnering with the Mountain Land Trust placing these easement. I would just not use the word place and suggest using the word to evaluate the possibility, something like that, a little softer. Just because I think it's gonna be fairly complex if we do get federal grants. That may something you could evaluate in that context too. But I think it's a good idea. I think opening this up on every level we can to other grant opportunities with some credits is great. Just want to make sure that we're supporting the concept and exploring it, but not necessarily ready to go and sign these things yet.
Thanks. Questions from the board?
Yeah.
Roger, and
We met with the National Park Service month and a half ago, about, improving some of the trails, along some of the, parcels that you just, talked about, including Randall Meadow. And so I wanted to make sure that the easement wouldn't preclude any trail development.
So I went out there with Alaire Diamond and Bob Heiser from BLT, probably a month ago or so, and had that conversation and said, hey, we are actively pursuing this. Nothing is set in stone yet, but we want this to be a facet of this property. And they said, yeah, it does add a layer to the overall easement creation, negotiation, et cetera, but it doesn't preclude this. So it can absolutely be done. So kind of knowing that we are pursuing that. And I said, you know, do we need to know what we're doing specifically? We can't do certain things based on, you know, the fact that we are pursuing this for floodplain reconnection. It is in the conservation floodplain district, so there's, you know, you can't do a ball field. And that was kind of their question. They're like, are you trying to do ball fields? And I said, no, we're not trying to do ball fields. So we're trying to do like pathways and things like that. And they said, that does not sound like a problem.
I guess two questions. I guess the first one is, for people who don't know, can you explain what floodplain reconnection is?
Yeah, it can mean a variety of different things. So the easiest way to think about it is with Randall Meadow. Over time, the river has incised, it's lowered essentially, due to a lot of different factors, increased flows, erosion, etc. And sometimes the land has actually risen due to our activities on it, filling, things like that. If you walk around Randall Meadow in the spring, before vegetation pops, you'll see an earthen berm essentially at the edge of the cornfield that goes most of the way around that, you know, the edge of the river. From plowing, maybe intentional, unsure. Reconnection can refer to lowering the surface of the land, so essentially scraping off a layer of dirt. This has been talked about with Randall, but essentially lowering that elevation such that when the river does flood, it can access that floodplain and essentially settle out in a defined engineered zone versus unexpectedly somewhere else, or maybe expectedly somewhere else. So giving the river a place to go. So these other projects could look like that, but we don't really know that yet. So in the case of, say, the ice arena, maybe there's no berm, maybe there's no real benefit to lowering it a lot or a little. We have to kind of figure that out. Maybe it's just a small portion of it in the floodway versus the flood zone. So essentially where the river flows through versus where it inundates. So it's a small bench, and that allows, say, the soccer field and the parking and the road to stay dry. So it could be a portion of a property, not the entirety. It can also look like native vegetation restoration. So again, there's a lot of different ways to essentially cut it. I wish I could tell you what those ways were going to be for all these specific projects, but that's what this application is for, right? Is to get a sense of what can we do where, how much is it gonna cost, and does it have benefit? Because like some of these, the juice might not be worth the squeeze.
Well, that's a great segue into my second question. For the ecosystem implementation grant to do with survey and design, does whoever facilitates the grant, if they look at all these projects that are proposed, is it up to them or is it up to us to pick the project at the end of the day? If they don't pick all five.
Well, so for this particular grant, we're just talking about survey, modeling, and design. Right, and so we would essentially start down the road of, okay, what do these 5 sites look like in terms of their benefits and their costs? Right, because we can get to that fairly quickly with concept. If we get to a point where it's like infeasible, costs outweigh benefits by a lot, then there's no real sense in taking it to 100% construction ready design.
I guess my question was more,
Okay,
if the grant is approved, but not the whole grant, who's picking the places that we're surveying?
well, we are at this point,
Right.
as the applicant.
Right.
So we have said, these are the 5 properties we want to look at. Like that's
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah.
We may go down the road of design and find out that DAC row is not worth it for whatever reason. It's not worth it. There's not enough benefit that outweighs the cost. So we kind of have a choice at that point to, you know, abandon or proceed with some version of it, right? And then we get to the end of this process, this grant process, and what this gives us is essentially house plans and costs. So we can then pick like, okay, this one's gonna cost $2 million. And we can get funding for that. So then we start to decide as a town, now we have these shovel-ready projects with costs, with price tags. We can then pursue funding ideally for those as we see fit. And and part of this is alternatives analysis. So you essentially would think, take the one that rises to the top, do that one first. For a variety of reasons, that doesn't always work that way, but we have the ability to pick from a list. Whereas right now we have a list, but no sense of cost benefit, not really. I think we know that Randall is probably the biggest and best. Beyond that, we're throwing darts in the dark. So this is an attempt to not do that.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Go ahead, Martha, come on.
I just,
Martha, I'm so sorry. I make everyone do it, so we gotta be consistent here. Otherwise, we're yelling and no one can hear
Nope,
online and.
Absolutely get. It is, speaking on behalf of the planning commission, it is on our next agenda. We have these same letters. So I echo the same concern that Tom presented, that a conservation easement, my experience working with development and conservation easements with VLT is they can be very, very restrictive. And if it precludes the opportunity for future funding, that would be a big bummer. And so I don't know if there's an opportunity to do the conservation easement later, when we're further down the road. It's just something to think about, because I'm concerned about future funding.
Thanks, Martha. Right. Right, Harry?
I'd like to start by asking, do we own the Coca-Cola dams?
No, we do not.
Okay. So I would suggest that that be considered a little bit with this notion of getting involved with a grant that might study removal of those dams. A little worried about getting ourselves engaged in something that we really don't have any rights to. The other thing I would offer is that I'm not 100% convinced that removing dams is going to help with flood resiliency out of the village. Those are not big impoundments. If there are structural challenges because they're partially breached, that should be the responsibility of the current dam owners, not the town. And the other thing I would offer is that dam removals are not always positive. Although the Bolton Dam wasn't removed, the clean water certification for the FERC permit, to continue to make power there, required that they remove their pneumatic flashboard, which is lowered the normal pond elevation about 6 feet from the dam all the way up past Little River, and just look at the stream bank erosion that is occurring along that stretch of river, because the normal water elevation has been reduced. Significant erosion and knotweed has become the norm there. So dam removals are very complicated, and I question why, if we are not the owner of the dam, why would we going down this road?
Can I speak to that? Yeah, so very good points, and taken. We've been in touch with the owners of the dam. In fact, Bill Woodruff has been doing outreach to both of them. From what we can tell, at least preliminarily, neither have an interest in the dam. They don't have the means, certainly, to maintain them in any way. And so we're attempting to essentially get similar letters of support saying, we support studying the removal of these dams going forward. I think without their say so, we're kind of dead in the water on this one. So that's why it's critical in my mind, having been involved with other dam removals, to do that work. So that's enough. So that's something we are actively working on. And then as far as the actual, concerns of is this beneficial, is this not beneficial from a flood resilience standpoint, from a clean water standpoint? That's the point of this exercise, right, is to figure that out. Because at this point, we don't know. So they could be beneficial, they could be harmful. They are partially breached, they have impacted the bridge at Laurel Lane in the past. If they were to critically fail for some reason, because they're not being maintained, there's essentially nothing going on there. Does that have an impact downstream? Does the impoundment now have an impact upstream? These are all questions that like, we don't know. And so I think just from a know before you go standpoint, like this is a good hedge against getting information. But I'm hopeful that we'll have those letters of support from the landowners by the end of this week. I'm bothering Bill constantly. I think he's having trouble getting in touch with them, but I want those in hand if we're gonna apply for this.
Would the study include an assessment of the impact on the bridge on Laurel Lane? Because that was severely eroded.
Right. And yes, I've talked with two consultants thus far. So SLR consulting with Fitzgerald Environmental to get scopes, essentially scopes and costs for the grant application. Both of them mentioned like, yeah, we'd have to figure out what the impact is gonna be on those, bridge abutments, scour, et cetera. So it has to be taken into consideration. So they're definitely aware. And then there's a private crossing in between the two dams. They would be evaluated as well. I don't think that's gonna have as. It seems to span bedrock, but it's evaluated.
I would just close by saying that these are private obligations that we are getting engaged with the public.
May I comment on that comment? Well, I agree that they are private obligations. If the property owner has no means to fix the problem, and the problem being a dam that is breached may impact the rest of the community, I see benefit in the town trying to fix that problem before it gets worse.
Val, you had a question, and then I think we should. Yeah. So I guess I'd like to remind everybody that we're in a federal shutdown. The government is shut down. So our community, our friends, family, some people, they're on furlough, they're not getting paid. Some people are working and not getting paid. Some people just aren't working and nothing. We're 20 days in. We don't know how long it's gonna go. If you go into November, December. It's a tragedy. And so I think that we should be mindful of these federal grants. That even ones we've been promised may not come to fruition. So I think that it would be nice to think about the amount of resources that we're putting into these grants, people, money, just resources in general on these funds that I understand they have benefit, but I'd just like to remind you about what's happening in our community. And that some of these grants just may never come to fruition.
Right, for the select board, I would suggest we should take these individually, so if folks want to make motions with regards to any of them, and noting that as has been outlined here, they're different. So we have the dam removal, which is to do study and design in partnership. We have the Randall Meadow, and then the one that we're specifically directly applying for would be the Healthy Ecosystem Implementation Grant. Is that correct, Jonas?
Yes.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah, just a question about Randall Meadow. I was on the website and I wasn't really able to find the studies that show the projected elevation and the water elevation drop. I mean, I know some things are said about like, a certain number of feet here and there, but I just saw like kind of the theoretical. Are there others that just aren't up there that I didn't see or wasn't able to find? I'm not sure if
I can double check. Our state out with that conflict.
Okay, yeah, because it is a lot of money. I just want to make sure, before we throw a lot of resources into it, that it has a little bit of data.
I can give you just a quick overview. SLR that did the study back in 2013 projected that dropping Randall Meadow, just the third of it that's towards the river by 5 feet would reduce the flood by about a foot.
And perfect, because I remember in Dana's springtime thing, you said you don't know how long it'll last, so if the next flood could come and fill it in. Right, and so it's very difficult, I know you can't predict nature but just want to be sure that we're being, most bang for the buck.
The preliminary study results are on pages 4 and 5. So that's the fifth page, so that shows the reductions upstream. And then the previous page shows like the topographic change for that.
And that's the preliminary data, and then the ones you're proposing would have more concrete.
We got a lot of work to do before we can say. This is exactly what we're doing. Okay. So that's part of that $4 million grant. Okay. Although most of that grant is trucking. It's a lot of.
It's a big project.
I don't know that well, but there's probably a 200-300 grand in that $4 million to get us to complete design and engineering. So yeah, there's still a lot of specifics with you.
And so if that comes back and it shows, well, it's really not as much as we thought. What are we ready to do a U-turn on some of that, or do we push forward? Because again, you put resource into it, then you have momentum. And I want to see, anything we can do with the flooding, of course, but I just want to be mindful of not putting good money after that at some point, sometimes it goes down.
I would feel really concerned if the numbers came back and they were like considerably worse than I thought they would be. As this project seems like the best hope for Randall Street and surrounding.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a lot of money and maybe, what else did we do? All right, thank you very much.
David, can you speak to a local match for any of these from the town to that end?
Match not required, but looked upon favorably. And so. For the Municipal NRCD, they're just looking for support, so that's the dam removal. For VLT, they're looking essentially for support for the easement. They would take on the grant application, so no match required. For the Lake Champlain Basin Program Healthy Ecosystems Implementation Grant, we're the applicant. We have the option to put in match, and that can come in the form of volunteer time or staff time, essentially. And so I think and this is a conversation that I need to have with Tom about some of the mechanics of this before we get too far down that road, but I think we probably straight face say like we are matching with some kind of staff time or like volunteer time to do a lot of this stuff. We're not required to write a check. Not a requirement of this grant program.
All right, would any of the board members like to make a motion with regard to any of these?
I move to approve the letter regarding the study of the removal of the dams.
Is there a second? Sure. Motion by Troy, second by Tang. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Or abstentions? All right, that letter is approved.
I move the town of Waterbury directly apply to the Champlain Basin Program for the Healthy Ecosystems Grant to do the survey on Owens and Dillon.
Second.
Motion by Tang, second by Troy. Any further discussion on this? Any questions? Right, all those in favor, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right. Last one is Randall Meadow.
I move to approve the letter for the Randall Meadow grant with the suggested edit from the town manager regarding replacing the language about easement.
I'll second it.
Motion by Troy, second by Roger. Any further discussion? Dana, just to clarify, this is investigating an easement, but we would need a separate board vote to put an easement on property. Yes. Any other questions? Right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, you're all set. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Okay. Next up, we have the local option tax policy continued. This was on our last meeting agenda at the fire station, and I believe we had some of those updates to look at. Tom, I will turn it over to you to go through.
Yeah, some.
Loudly, please, yell, yell. You're the only one here who I tell that.
Some editing corrections and some formatting changes, Under aspirations, I had a suggestion from Sandy Saden to include the figure $10,000, but I left it at all expenses, was it reasonable? At that point in the year to try to consider all expenses, and I thought process as part of aspirations. In aspiration 3, there was also an addition there related to social service organizations. There's a section of state law that funds social service appropriations, and they must be approved by the voters at a town meeting day, and so that's clarified there. So what's a social service appropriation? American Red Cross. Now there's 20 of them on our warning. So just to make a clarification there, suggestion from Sandy was not to specify social service organization, but to say any organization outside of town government, but I don't think that's appropriate because some of those organizations could receive funding as a fee for service. So it's not a social service, it's a fee for service. And then aside from that, the remainder was simply formatted. So some of Sandy's suggestions, which I appreciated, and add some formatting. The other piece Sandy suggested, which I did not take, was she suggested ending the policy with the process by which you requested funds. But in my judgment, that's no different than requesting any type of funds from the Selectboard process of petitioning for funds in essence. And so I'd be happy to add that to the website to make it clear to people how you would go about requesting these funds to be in the warning, whether people for tax funds or otherwise, but I didn't think that was necessary because there's not necessarily a difference in the process of these funds versus any other. So that was my rationale for not including that. So that's the policy presented before you today.
Questions or comments from board members?
Thank you for taking the time to do this and making the appropriate changes from the suggestions. I don't have really any further comments other than like it looks good to me. I think it falls in line with the goals and aspirations that we had when we passed the town charter in the first place.
Questions or comments?
Tom, do the four bullets under approved use of funds, does that differ in any substantial way from what we presented to the town and to the legislature?
That's not. These are the 4 bullets we talked about, I think, from day one.
Once again, pointed out at our last meeting when this was presented the first time. Someone pointed out that number 2, where it says funding affordable housing, economic development, community vitality efforts. The wording has just been, we've just reworded it, although all the words still exist, they're just in a different order, right? Right, I believe when presented, when we passed the charter, economic development came first in that list of items on two approved, yeah, approved uses.
Are there questions or comments from the public, please? Sandy, you have one?
I just have a question on your number 3. With this extra wording for that it includes for social service purposes. Does that mean if WADA came to you, you would be able to give them the money that you allocated to them last year with leaving this in?
So I would argue that if WADA came to the town and requested unrestricted funding. They're not a social, I wouldn't call WADA a social service organization, but I think they should be evaluated for that lens. But if water came to the town with a specific project that they would do with the funding, that's a fee for service. In essence. So I would argue there's a fundamental difference there. Depends on the exact nature of the appropriation.
Okay,
But I would argue that if water wants funding, that's general funding, that's really a matter of the one.
I guess my problem with that is, you see a fee for service, but it was done on non-town land, so, but that's why I feel like. And I know there was a lot of people upset about it and the fact that it could have waited until town meeting, and I'm just afraid that something could slide through again that could, you know, it's just feels like it needs, that sort of item should be asked of voters, especially if it's outside, even if it is for fee. I just feel like this money should stay in town, because I don't think the voters approved something thinking that it was okay to give it to the outside, or at least without their vote on it. So I guess I kind of disagree with keeping that part of it in, because I feel like right now we already have this in place. Social services already come to the town, and it's added to the articles in the town. So I just feel like that should be eliminated.
Speaking for myself, Sandy, not as chair, I would just say, to me, aspirations 1 and 5 are both there to support not being in that situation that we were before, just with regards to wanting to include everything and having more with us about that. Valerie, you want to?
Thank you. So yeah, last time we met, I did make a proposal to change aspiration 1, 2, and 4 from shall reasonably endeavor to we will. So we will include all expenditures. We will be conservative. We will avoid. You took it under advisement. It looks like you didn't agree with me. So I do feel like this is not a contract where you need to protect yourself. This is a policy. And I think it should affect the expectations of your community, what the town will do, not what you aspire to. So I'm wondering why you are resistant to changing.
It isn't aspirations. We're aspiring to do all of that.
But an aspiration is, that's what we really want to do, but I think that you're a town and policy should reflect community expects, and we do expect that you will do those things.
So just to be clear. In every legal document I've ever seen, the standard is the word shall. Shall means will, legally speaking, that's in every contract that there is.
So why is there a resistance to change it, not change it?
Because we're not changing the meaning. We're using the common legal term, which is shall.
Well, it wasn't addressed. I did propose it and I stand by it. And it sounds like you're gonna stick to the wording that you've been there. So my second comment is number 3, the one that you've added. Any request for funds by an organization outside of local government for social services must be included in the warning. So what that tells me is that we could still have a repeat of November 2024, where the select board gives $100,000 of local option tax to the housing trust fund, because the housing trust fund is inside of local government. So I would propose that number 3 be changed to any local option tax fund allocation for housing to include the Waterbury Local Government Housing Trust Fund shall be an article of the town meeting warning. And I say that because I think that 5 people shouldn't decide about giving that much money to a housing trust fund. I think that the public should participate in that decision. And I do see in 2024 at town meeting day, you did put $75,000 to capitalize the town's housing trust fund in an article with a lot of capital expenses. So it would have been hard for anyone to say no to that, because there were so many perfectly reasonable things that were in there. And you did put into another article, 1,500 for support to down street housing. So I'm saying that anything that has to do with housing from our local option tax should be participated by the public in the decision.
Anyone can change an article on town meeting day. Anyone can propose a change to any town meeting day.
I think I'm confusing you and I'm sorry for that. It's number 3 that I would like changed because, or you can say any request for funds by an organization inside or outside of local government. Or you could just take anything that has to do with local option tax and housing and put it on Australian ballot. I just think that this number 3 gives the select board the same power you have right now to take local option tax money for housing. And I'm not saying housing doesn't need money, but I think that it should be decided by the voters.
Voters approve the $75,000 in one town meeting day.
Right, because you put it in an article with gravel road materials, highway capital funds, development conceptual plans.
I believe there also was a motion on town meeting day to take each of the articles in that item individually for a vote, and it failed on town meeting.
I think
So
we
I hear your point and
heard that. Thank you for it.
You're very welcome, but
Was there
so
another
I would like discussion about that.
Was there another section as well that you'd like to address?
No.
Or is that-
I'm happy to speak for myself. I think the aspiration is to include all of the spending as we did last year in a full item label. Local option tax, again, that's aspiration 1 is to include all of that for town meeting, including housing. I personally don't feel that the housing funding needs to have a different standard as any other funding for other capital expenses.
Well, I would disagree because of November 2024, when you made the motion to give $100,000 to the local option tax and 5 people voted on it. And I don't think that was right.
I'd make it quick. So just looking at number 2 on the approved uses of funds, my concern that it says funding for affordable housing. That suggests to me that we're in the housing building business. I don't know if there's any other wording there that can better explain perhaps your goals as to promoting development of housing in Waterbury. Number 1, and I think the word, and I've said it in the past, that affordable is misleading. There's nothing affordable about housing today. So if it were me writing this document, that word would be gonzo. So this basically, and I'm looking out for the town in the respects that I don't want a different board down the road suggests thinking that we're gonna take tax day dollars and actually hire builders to build projects to house people. I think our goal here is to facilitate proposed projects off properties to perhaps developers, because it's been suggested that we're not in the development business, but we're here to perhaps promote potential projects or properties for potential for other developers as we are down here at Stanley Hall to develop these properties. Because, so I don't know if you want to take a second look at that. The lawyer here can weigh in on it a little bit and come up with some different wording, but doesn't box us in to what I read as the potential to be in the business. Is there money we can suggest? I was thinking about that a little bit earlier here, but it would take me a little bit of a few minutes to, you know, digest that and maybe come up with something if you give me that time. I don't know if this has to be taken care of tonight.
I can comment before you throw it in there. I commented when we first opened this that the words have just been reorganized from our original proposal, so it was already in there. I just think it was option number 2 or 3 where economic development had come first.
Well, I think the big question, I'm seeing it not only here in the town of Waterbury, but in general, with citizens from the state that, you have to understand and don't take this as a derogatory statement or anything that's, meant to. But if you've never owned a home, you don't know what's involved in all the stress of having that. Mortgage payment, the insurance, homeowners insurance, the property taxes, the maintenance, all the upkeep, everything that's involved in that. And I think I'm speaking for a lot of people in the state right now, under the circumstances, that are having a very difficult time hanging on to those homes. So the pushback, I think, on issues like this aren't from the aspect that they don't want additional housing. It's from the perspective that they don't want to lose what they've got now that they're just teetering on. For the sake of what I said earlier in this evening's discussion about going into deficit spending just to provide housing for the sake of providing housing, because your ideology says that this is what we need to do at any cost. I'm all for it if the numbers work. I just want to try to protect the town from getting any more up to their neck in taxpayers' dollars going towards this effort of solving this so-called housing crisis. And getting, and just making it more difficult for the people that are here. So to come up with some different wording, I'd like some time to be able to do that. Sounds like you may want to put this to bed tonight. Was that the goal?
The will of the board.
I would just like to comment that I'm not really sure on your comment about deficit spending. We're not spending from a deficit.
No, what I'm saying is,
What I would
can I
also,
explain that real quick?
sure,
To clarify that and maybe for everybody. So when you get a project, just for instance, this project down here, if it yields $120,000 annually in proposed revenue, property tax revenue. Growth requires additional services. So if we have to put on 2 police officers, let's say, as suggested, it's all speculative at this point. 2 new police officers and a full-time fireman. At the current rate of cost expenditure for a police department, that $120,000.
Chris, I hear you. I think I should ask the board if we want to talk more tonight or if.
Yeah, I don't
move on,
want to take
because I don't
up,
think we're gonna solve it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
but, so once you go over what that revenue source brings in, without going back to the general fund and taking either local office tax money or raising the taxes on people to fund the other half of that police department, that other member, 1 member, and then an additional member, then possibly a full-time police department. That's what I call deficit spending. Now you're going back to what, sure, the money that you've already budgeted for other things, and now you happen to either steal from that or raise taxes.
Does someone on the board want to make a motion to this? Do you want to discuss this? Do you want to discuss this at our November 30th? And as well?
Well, I respect Chris's concern about the affordable housing term. I'm hesitant to change any of the language when it mirrors the language that was approved when this was proposed originally. So for that reason, I would like to move to approve this option tax policy.
second.
I will note it combines the first 2 dollars, so I will say in transparency, because I have the thing, we're not 100% true, but so. I don't think we deviate it back from being sorry. Any further discussion or questions?
I'll just say that, I appreciate all the concerns that were brought up tonight. And I think our intention is not for the town to become a housing developer. It's also our intention to bring all of these issues on spending before the taxpayers. As Tori said, this was the language that was presented to the legislature. It's also the language that was presented to the town that was passed. So, we support this.
Other questions or comments? Speaking for myself as chair, we have none of this document, so having this document will be a step forward in terms of having things clearly outlined and transparent. Any other questions? Right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? Right, we adopted the policy. Next up, we have Conservation Commission bylaw update. This came up at the prior meeting during the Conservation Commission's quarterly check-in. The group has bylaws, those need to be approved by the select board, and I believe there's some proposed changes that are posted. And I know Amy, who's the chair, is here on Zoom. I don't know, Amy, if you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, I can. Just to give a little background, as I mentioned at our quarterly update, we are currently in the process of experiencing an attendance challenge, which has created challenges with either dispersing responsibilities and or decision making. So in this particular case, it's been for an extended period of time. And we then looked to ways to address it. And we realized that we had not yet set any expectations with amongst ourselves and or with the select board for that, which is what brought us to looking at our bylaws to see if we had anything there that would help with this particular circumstance. And what it does not appear that anybody's sharing. So I'm not sure if folks are planning to share in the room or is there a discussion, but I can just speak to the Conservation Commission, took some time to draft some updates to a section, commission membership, members at large, and then add some content there, speaking about the expected attendance.
We have printed copies in the room, but I also. All right, Tom, do you have anything to add on this? I don't know if this was a dual agenda item, so we obviously have this in the scope of Conservation Commission. I think, Tom, your recommendation had been to look at all boards and commissions. It seems like in general, that would be a longer process. And I'll say, speaking for myself, one where we would want to talk to all the board and commissions, which is why we've had these considered separately, but I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
I do think it's a good idea at some point to look at that, and when there's appropriate time. That being said, I don't think the Conservation Commission's policy proposal is unreasonable, and they're the board having the challenge right now. So I don't have an objection necessarily, or to make this sound specific to them.
Board members have questions or comments, maybe?
Yeah, make a comment. Amy, you had said that you've been having attendance issues, hence why this is in front of us today.
That's correct. I have one member we have not seen since April.
And I see that number 7 has been struck.
Yeah, I believe it's been embedded in, I'd have to go look at my copy, but I can't see it here, but it's embedded in 6, I believe. Hold on, let me pull.
Yeah.
My apologies. Is it?
Sorry, the first line in number 6.
Yes. Thank you. Written notice. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members? So just reiterating, this is actually mostly controlled by statute, by Vermont state statute, and this is really just referencing that as it applies to our Conservation Commission and Waterbury. Does anyone have questions or comments on this? No one came to the meeting for the boards and commissions policy. I do think we should study it for the future, but does anyone have any other questions?
I just think any other board chairs or commission chairs that want to take this up to be encouraged to do so, but otherwise I make a motion to approve this change in the Conservation Commission bylaws.
I'll second.
Motion by Tori, second by Roger. Any further discussion or questions?
Well, I congratulate Amy for bringing it up. I do think that attendance at committees is important. We entrust people apply, we entrust them to give their best effort. And if there's a lingering absence that is unexplained and it challenges their ability to form a quorum and make decisions, I think it impedes their public service. So I do think that's important.
I'll make a comment, kind of echoing Roger's sentiment. I was hoping to throw in a proposal before we went to motion. So if you allow me to make a comment after this motion either fails or passes.
You want to move that friendly amendment?
No, because it involves broader board discussion, or broader committee discussions.
Right, on the Conservation Commission motion, is there any further discussion or questions? I'm sorry, Margaret.
I'm sorry. Is there,
Thank you.
is there any reason it has to be 9 members? It's the largest commission. I mean, select board has 5, the planning commission has 5. I mean, that would help with attendance. So I just put it
I
out.
recall from looking at the statute, it can be a range, Amy, but I don't know if you want to speak to why 9 feels right.
Yeah, that's right. I believe we had 7, and actually, the other 8 members are attending effectively. So at this point, we haven't seen that issue. When we were at 7, it was harder for us to get engagement. By having 9, it allowed us more diversity also in terms of skill sets, but also participation.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, Kane, I'll turn it to you for board and commission generally comment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would it be prudent to hold a roundtable of sorts with all committee chairs over something that may look very similar to this?
It sounds like you're describing, is he still here, Dana Allen's ever popular quarterly board and commission gathering, which I think I've been pitched on for several years running. So you've got one taker. If someone wanted to organize a giant mega warrant for every board and commission gathering.
No, I was gonna
one
say,
could
just invite the chairs,
Just the chair.
as we might have problems with attendance for some of the committees.
Well, you wanted to invite the chair. Godspeed. You're saying to discuss further.
To discuss a policy that may look similar to this one.
Understood. Yes, and I would say, I mean, and Tom, you said this in fairness, candidly, that some towns have had made changes to attendance policies and suddenly found themselves struggling even more with volunteer commission members. So it's certainly something to do prudently and with consultation with folks. Were you volunteering to host?
I will send the emails.
Well, look forward-
I can promise you I will send the emails.
All right, we'll look forward to a report back at a future meeting.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna get voluntold.
If
That's
you
what I
wanna
was thinking.
collaborate with the meeting, that's fine. Is there any?
Sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thanks for forwarding. Oh, we've gone dark on the owl. Well then.
Well, it's not dead. It's just on. Come back to life.
Oh.
It's not going to work.
No, it's just not showing. Should I put it? There we go. It's gonna get great.
I just stop and use that.
Is the sound still working though?
We can still hear you online. Or I can.
Thank you. Looks like we got it read.
Back to life.
There we
There
go.
it is.
Good. Alrighty, next up is capital soccer lease. A number of folks here. And I know we have materials, which I am sharing. Thanks for being here. Tom, do you want to kick it off to start, or do you want them to?
I'm happy to do it. So the lease of the soccer field was something the town inherited a couple of years back from the village and then Blueside, so it's been embraced for some time. Essentially, this is a renewal, and the major change is just the soccer fields are reconfigured now. The work in the soccer fields, hadn't been there today, but as of Friday, we need the seed. But the fields are regraded and basically completed through some FEMA money. This is actually the last of the 2023 FEMA projects, so now that this one is just about done, close out that FEMA plan. 2024 is basically done, so I've been waiting for this for a while. But the work in the soccer field required a lot of effort. There was some permitting that Capital Soccer and Mike quickly took the lead on. There was a bid process to get to where we are, and so really what this lease does is renews the lease, recognizes the new configuration of the field, it keeps in place essentially provisions that require for Capital Soccer in the field. So we're not on the hook for maintenance. You know, I think from everyone's perspective, there is some ongoing concern about future floods. That being said, I can't think of a better opportunity for where that is in floodplain than it was as planning. Capital Soccer has done a really good job of making things workable. Given it took some time to really get through this process and spend the money. But when you look at their obligations, it's really that they're responsible for the upkeep, they're responsible for the expenses. Also was a funny note, we pulled the report the other week, and in fact, if we pull you around $1 a year rent, so they are current on rent. But I think it's bit of no brainer to do this.
Anything you folks want to add?
No.
Tom, I'm just noting that. Going to the meetings. Are you sure?
Yes.
I would love to talk less, really, it's my aspiration. You sure? Okay. I do have a letter from our recreation director, email, excuse me, Katarina, just noting her support, that Mike, our Capital Soccer representatives have been great partners to the town, including with the BOREC grant and the FEMA funding. And then just highlighting the change around the foot field, which is the one change in the spending wall for the next 10 years. Questions from the board?
I'm just wondering about the use of the new field. I've been getting a lot of questions as to what's going on that upper field that's been graded down. I said, I believe that Capital Soccer is creating a new field there. Perhaps you could explain what that is and how it's going to be used.
Happy to do it. Yep, so that was previously a cornfield. It looked flat to the naked eye until you start rolling the ball around it. Currently, the largest size field down in the floodway is a 11v11 field, a full-size soccer field. Near the dog park, there is a smaller field, which is a U10 or a 7v7. It's younger kids or fewer adults. The newest field will be an official 99 size field, U12. It will maintain the parking that has been there before. It was really just a regrading exercise to level off the area to some extent. Just is, again, while it looked like very level, there was 3 or 4 feet of elevation change some areas. So it was a scrape off the topsoil, amend the sand below, move it around, and put the topsoil back. So I believe it was fairly well balanced by Jay McDowell to do the project. So.
So can I please get your name for the minutes?
Sure, Mike Meady. V as in Victor. Yeah.
And what will be use?
What we've been hearing is that it takes several years for the turf, the grass seed to grow in and not just get trampled and die the first time it gets used. So we're planting on a dormant seed right now. So hopefully we start to see some growth in the spring, but I bet it's going to be 2027 before we see some real durable grass growing there. We learned the hard way of having some of the new growth after we planted many, many seedings recently, that it doesn't take much for it to get pounded and back into nothing. And if there's no roots really established that can regenerate, it's kind of an all or not. So we've got our fingers crossed. We've got some very good athletic turf, which is taking the place of the flood grasses that are in the area now. And it becomes highly recommended from our local turf guy.
And then the lower field is subject to frequent inundation. And what's the plan to keep that playable?
The plan that we've now done several times over the past few years is to deep tine aerate, reseed, then back drag, and then we roll in the spring. And keep your fingers crossed that maybe you get a year where that doesn't happen. So. We've been working with Ned Swanberg of the River, State Department of Rivers, with A&R, and we have been able to apply some organic material to help the grasses grow, because there has been an enormous amount of silt and sand sort of left on top of that. And so the amendments are very organic and approved, and while we can't afford to do it every time, we try to do what we can. Luckily, the earth is soft there, so we can aerate
Without adding a lot of phosphorus loading?
correct. No phosphorus loading. We have that documentation if you need it.
Other questions or comments from board members?
We'd be looking for, authorizing the municipal manager to sign the updated lease agreement with Capital Soccer and the town of Waterbury. Maybe it's the village that slipped in there, maybe in that first line.
The lessor is the town.
Making sure we get that. I don't know if anyone wants to.
I'll move. All right. I'll move to authorize the town manager to sign the lease agreement between the town of Waterbury and Capital Soccer Incorporated.
Second. Motion by Kane, second by Tori. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Great, next up, we're on to additional event, entertainment and liquor permits that were not on consent. The first is event and entertainment permits for the skate park opening. It looks like those didn't get posted, so forgive me, everyone, it's gonna take a minute and
I don't think we can the PDF and figure out. Okay, that was. Okay.
sure, the skate park is opening, which is very exciting, and it's been a municipally involved project for many years. The opening will be held on 12 to 4 p.m. on 10/26. Everyone is invited. I hope you will be there. If we would like that to happen, we have both a special event permit and
we need to be looking at it to make a motion.
I think it's generally good practice, yes. It's good, so the Waterbury Sleeper opening party. October 26th, that would be present the sleeper, the town of Waterbury. Question mark 5,200 people.
Might have a food vendor working on this. They would have to be super. Yeah, right.
Yeah, to go to the permit. We have to approve that before they can,
Yes.
so we have to come back for the rest of the meeting, it's the 26th, I think it's on Friday, that's how
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
They would have to get this.
The
Another-
vendor would have to get a permit.
Can't approve a permit without an applicant, can we?
Well, we can. Approve a permit for live music and an event, but just no food. Yeah.
What if we go to 100?
Yeah, Roger's gonna be skating the ball.
Yeah, I work up an appetite after I'm from school.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve this and give me the J and the opening party for this week?
Uh,
Or otherwise?
I'll make a motion to approve the event and the DJ on this application, but clearly if their food vendor doesn't have an application with us at this time, it's going to be very hard for them to get one.
There's also other ways of having food.
Right.
But they're not event.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, any opposed, any abstaining? Next up is a one-time occasion permit. This is a liquor permit, it's the Maxis. I just wanted to flag that this is for a different and revised event than what we before previously as a board. As is described in the.
We have maybe to present.
I don't think we do.
Yes,
Oh,
we do.
we do, yeah. Take two, back again.
Yeah, your time now.
Amazing. I missed one while I was away. We have your liquor permit here as was submitted through the state. I think the question was if there was any other entertainment permit for this update on this. So
Is there other entertainment permits that I need?
I think we had the version of the one you applied last time. I believe the date was not 11/8 at that.
It's still 11.
Yeah.
Same location, same plan. This is, we will direct a few revisions.
And you use background.
I would like to, yes.
Just for parking.
Just for parking, and we'll take care of making sure that. You know, people aren't parking on the ball field. Figure out a way to make sure that doesn't happen. And then we also like the rec center as well.
They want to speak a little louder.
Okay, and we'd also like I think we had discussed, the rec center being available as well. The parking progress, which is a closer lot for.
I move to approve this event permit. Need all the necessary corresponding permits that have been applied for.
I'll second it.
Motion in a second, Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about parking. I'm a PO box owner and I can't get to my box as it is on a Saturday morning. And I don't know what the plan is for parking, but, people that are waiting to get into your wonderful establishment, I wanna preface it that way, are not looking at the parking signs that say post office parking only. They
Right.
park there all the time.
Well,
What's
if-
gonna happen?
I would like to just mention that one thing is, we actually have access and permission to use the parking over there. Maybe not ready. Well, technically we do in front of the post office, but I've never tried to follow, like, push that, but we have the whole back row is shared with the post office. Maxie's and the post office.
Out by the highway?
Yes,
Right, that's not, but those signs are in front of the post office.
right.
Post
I mean-
office on.
Yeah,
So
it says
that's,
post
that
office
is why
only, I
the
mean-
event is not starting till 11:30. And the first 2 hours of it are gonna be a free breakfast for the community in the tent, hopefully aiming at seniors and people who maybe can't always afford to go out for breakfast, so that half hour that will be happening, we'll make sure that the post office's parking is not interrupted. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion to accept this.
I second it.
Any other questions or discussion on this?
Congratulations on 20 years.
Thank you.
And I'll note that this liquor permit is till 11 p.m., but the music's stopping by 10, right? Because that's.
Whoa, if you want, 10's
9:30. I think
Okay,
9:30 is
9:30
what
would
was
be
in the
great,
last
too.
one. I know, I'm just saying, we're allowing this after, but you are next to a neighborhood, so
I am, yep,
I think 9:30, what was it in the application?
but I would take 9:30, I would really like 9:30, I mean, the band that we're playing, hiring is several $1,000, so
9:30.
9:30
You
would be
see why
nice.
it's time, correct, so 9:30.
9:30 plus the encore.
That's enough.
Or the Manville, 9:30?
9:30.
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion? And then noting this is contingent on just getting the reservations for those 2 spaces for the parking. Right, any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yep, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, really
Looking forward to it.
appreciate it, thank you.
All right, next up, we're on to municipal updates. These are things that usually would fall in the next agenda item, but seem worth calling out for community updates. And then first up is the Better Connections Grant. Tom, do you want to speak to that?
There's been some different dates envisioned by the team leaders in the committee, but the new date for the walkthrough with consultant is November 2nd and noon. That's a Sunday. So noon at the pavilion, in Waterbury Center. And there'll be a couple different walking routes people choose from. So the walking will start at 12:30 and that's about half an hour. Consultants will be joining different groups to take notes and try to get a good sense of the comments. The intent is to go that day. There's a rain date, which would be Saturday, November 8th. So I'll put that out on our report. There's been an article on the roundabout, but we'll get that updated on Facebook. But that's the Better Connection stuff, so that's sort of a big takeoff on the project in some respects.
What time did you say it was from?
On November 2nd,
Time.
minimum, at the very, the walking over starts at 12:30.
Is, by pavilion, do you mean the, okay, the pavilion?
No, the triangle.
Triangle?
No, the gazebo.
Gazebo.
The gazebo.
Sorry, okay. Right, myself. It's city talked about and changed 3 different times, so hopefully.
You wanna start in my backyard?
I do think there's a flyer on it. Okay. Excellent. Any questions, comments on this Better Connections item?
All right, next up, we have Waterbury Housing Improvement Program, and Tom, I'll let you speak to this. Please.
So we have all the agreement with Down Street is signed. Our program will go live in exactly 1 week. Because our program is our funds as dictated by the Selectboard. Will not be available while state funds are, the state program ends in 1 week. So that's at which point we will go live. Down Street does have a functioning website outlining our program, and we'll do our own update this week. There's 20 people there, but we are in fact, we now have a program.
1 week from today, Tom?
Yes.
The link to Down Street page is currently available with just a brief overview of information on the Housing Task Force page. Yeah.
Must have been today.
Last week.
All right.
Any other questions or comments on this? Noting it is less money than the state program, so apply to the state program first if you're trying to build an ADU in Waterbury, just from a financial perspective. But if and when folks are waitlisted or that money isn't accessible for other reasons, again, we have this more localized version with some more lenient parameters, hoping to encourage housing creation in Waterbury. We have enough funding currently allocated to support 3. We said we would evaluate and take stock based on if, how many, or any applications we get at that point.
So please apply.
Any other?
But just make one quick comment, I don't want to belabor it because we had a little property tax housing policy discussion, but I just want to note that the VHIP program, one of the comments in the legislature that I think some folks voted to vote for was that housing is created by VHIP and their program is not permanently affordable. But if you want to look down the road 10 years, and if there is in fact a local option tax in the housing trust fund for Waterbury, you could then say to those owners, we'd like to have you consider extending the affordability period for X amount of dollars. And so you could in essence have some apartments. Something or find more affordable. Just something to think about 10 years from now, but I just wanted to note.
Lower almost still on the board.
Any questions or comments about this? So more info to come. It's been on front porch form once, but again, more updates when it's formally open in a week.
I would, make a comment, as I've been a huge proponent of, to put it lightly, of this program, and to see it get off the ground, and we're at an open applications phase. Very excited to see if anyone applies, and if they do, how many apply. I think to revisit a discussion on a previous item, this is what the housing trust is designed for, and I'm hoping to see affordable housing construction in Waterbury funded by this program.
Any other questions or comments?
I thought during the meeting, and they said that the VHIP program is still open until November, and so that application, they won't be accepting applications for the Waterbury program until after.
I think that was the goal. I don't know.
Okay.
The dates.
Okay.
Is that right?
I believe it's the 26th or 27th, but
It opens
of this month.
I'd say that as the consultant charged with promoting it. Yes.
Awesome. Any other questions, updates? Right, I'll go with town plan update, and for the record, I did not ask Martha as chair of the planning commission to be here, but if you would like to say anything, I just wanted folks to know this is happening in the background with, and get it on the radar, but Tom or I could speak to
Really, I
it
gave up
too.
my evening to come to.
Yeah, well, how many times have you gotten to speak with us?
I know.
If you want support, I'm right here.
Yeah, vice chair. The town plan is moving along. We have been running through meeting with expert. With community organizations, experts of their field, and any interested stakeholders or parties. With respect to each chapter, and so I hope I'm saying this clearly. At the beginning, we met with Tom, Municipal Service, EFUD, then we had another one. You can help me here, where we had energy, we talked about the energy chapter, we had Green Mountain Train and the transportation chapter. And so we had Green Mountain, as an example, we had Green Mountain Transit come and we had representatives from LEAP. So we're going through methodically allocating a good portion, if not pretty much the entire planning commission meetings to each of these chapters. We have coming up, oh, thanks for bringing up these dates. So we moved, we're meeting our next meeting is with the Historic Society and recreation folks. And then on November 10th, we'll be meeting with Natural Resources for the first half and Flood Resilient Parties the second half. And so we're just methodically moving through the topic chapters, and we are working with SE Group on a chapter template. So it's moving along.
Looks like some folks are writing down dates. Is there any questions or comments from the board or the public for Martha or the planning commission?
Yeah.
Sorry for not introducing you.
I stuck around.
Is November 10th still correct for natural resources and flood resilience?
Yeah, we had that scheduled for the 13th, but needed to change it because of the holiday.
Great. And just noting, I've been to or called into, I think almost all of these, and it just needs opportunity to have a real conversation with everyone who's a stakeholder in each of these topics. So if anyone's interested in that, please show up.
Yeah, I will say, because we're working on the chapters, it's really been an input from participants. And so the planning commission's next task will be to take all of that input. There's, as you can imagine, there's plenty of synergies or overlap from one chapter to another, talking about energy and energy efficiency and housing, for example. I can't believe I didn't mention the housing meeting. And so bringing all of this information together and then coming up with aspiration goals and strategies that are positive, that positively benefit the town in the whole is going to be our next challenge. So, I mean, just because somebody makes an aspiration doesn't necessarily mean that will be the aspiration. It has to be considered in the context of the whole document.
But if people have input to start.
We need the input, that's what we're
Alright,
doing.
that's
We can now any input we can hear.
We're in the drafting process, and then that'll be presented once drafted. If hopefully it won't take that long, right?
And you get to this page from the planning commission website, just for everyone.
Yep. Just as an aside, we are working with Karen to make some updates on the planning commission website, just to update some of the documents there so that the planning and zoning is accurate. There's some old stuff in there, so Karen's helping us clean that up. Do you have a question, sir? Okay.
There was a comment about public safety, is public safety.
Public safety is in the municipal services chapter, or will be.
Okay.
Okay, questions, comments? Thanks for coming in, thanks for being here, thanks for the public plug, appreciate it. Great, that concludes the ones that were listed on the agenda, so we are now at additional select board and municipal manager informational updates. Right about on original agenda time. Roger, do you have anything you'd like to say?
The rec committee is meeting next week. And there is at the board retreat of revitalizing Waterbury. They expressed an interest in supporting the improvement of the trails and pathways around the downtown area, which would be sort of in concert with a community connectivity initiative within the rec committee. So we're exploring that partnership and maybe coming back to the select board for support on a proposal, a planning grant for a phased project to improve the trail network in and around town.
No, or natural disaster has not met this month. I think. Given the drought. I think looking into other natural disasters might be imperative. Fire and just floods, but we'll see.
Sadly, I missed the tree board meeting last week. I was really upset. I asked them to have me call in, but nobody called me. I was sad. But I will say they've done incredible work with the resources that they've. And they might need more resources next year. Because inoculating trees and even taking down trees is not cheap. So. But stay tuned.
The Revitalizing Waterbury was planning to come to the board on the 17th of November. Would that work for you from a budgetary standpoint?
Yeah. Did we own that process?
And ostensibly, the committee be looking for more resources.
Like I said, I missed the meeting. All I know that was the topic of like, oh no, we need to have a plan. This budget's not.
Yeah, we did, I think the tree, don't quote me, I think this year there's $8,000 in budget for trees. Which is double what we had in 2024, but. One big tree on Main Street is 300.
How much?
Also,
Three
day.
Is
Involved with utilities, 3 day, get a tree done.
Just one tree, so it's like half the budget.
That being said, I think part of what the tree board wants is also some additional tree plantings and cemeteries instead.
Stay tuned.
And they're still inoculating some of the ash trees.
Yeah.
And that's not cheap either.
Not cheap either. They have a schedule and they're trying to identify ones and prioritize ones and kind of figure it out like that, you know, because they can't inoculate all of them at all, like it's impossible. And then they also, it also costs money just to get the drones out there to check and see what the risk factor is too, so.
And how many years do you get out of an inoculation?
I think
It's every other year.
2 years?
I don't know if it goes
I
5
think-
years if it's effective, but.
yeah, I think you get more than a year. But I will learn.
Do you wanna see if we wanna come in?
I would love
That would be great.
Yeah,
Let's
great.
see if we can schedule that for the future. It seems like this group, and I know they do have some signs saying it has posted as well
I'll-
for the. tree
I'll
cleanup.
reach out to them.
That sounds great to do that.
Yeah.
My updates are I attended the housing committee last Thursday. We heard the update on the housing improvement program. I would say we had a preliminary discussion around short-term rentals and the registry and proposals, so that will likely be before all of us coming soon. In that vein, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns is having an all-day, short-term rental retreat for select board members and town managers, thus recognizing it's something that is showing up across the state. Waterbury got asked to be on that. I was very upfront about our limited registration thus far, as we heard earlier tonight. Joe Conrad can't be there, so I'm gonna be the select board rep, but anyone is welcome to attend and hear from other towns. I think Londonderry and Ludlow, maybe Stowe, were all invited along with folks from the State Department of Tourism and others.
I can register people. It should be done.
Great, so anyone interested should contact Tom, that's Saturday, November 8th.
I believe, and I attended. It's a short-term rental summit hosted by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And then I went to the last two planning commission input sessions that we just heard about. But I also wanted to flag that I believe we have someone from Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission coming to our next meeting on November 3rd. I think that is going to be very involved. There's a process where the state is looking at new Act 250 tier designations. There's moments that we as a local town might need to weigh in on that. So just a heads up that that will be on our next agenda. I believe it's a joint meeting with the planning commission. The planning commission had some questions about timing and input, and they actually had the time to get public input. So I think we'll have some questions for the CVSBC, Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission staff when they're here at our next meeting. That's all. Great. That brings us to agenda items for next meeting. I know I had already talked to Tom about quarterly budget update. We did it at this meeting for Q2. But Sandy mentioned that too. If we want to do short-term rentals and then anything Stanley Lawson, I don't know what other items for members.
Tom, will you be able to provide us with an update on all the research that you've been doing or have done around law enforcement and other towns? Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
We still some possible. I guess my other is maybe we should do a general HUD request funds. I will say I often get CC there's chaired, but folks are usually reaching out to Karen Petrovic, our town clerk, with the process for getting on the warning for town meeting and whatnot. And because we have to warn town meeting 40 days out, which gets us into January, it all starts backing up relatively quickly. So I think Tom, to your point around funding, having those dates and such outlined ahead of time would be prudent. So we can reach out to for that. Any other items from the board?
Do we want to, if we're gonna get into the topic of short-term rentals, do we want to invite Joe?
We certainly can, yeah, absolutely. Do you want short-term rentals that meeting? Cheryl just pointed out CVRPC, so I will say Stanley Watson, quarterly budget, law enforcement, CVRPC, short-term rentals. Town meeting's budget, we can do it.
It doesn't have to be a long conversation.
Okay, great, let's do it, then yes. And if you're interested in that, I think you can invite Joe. I'm in administrative burden. I have not invited Martha tonight because between finishing the agenda at 6 p.m. Friday, I'm prepping for the meeting. I did not follow up with you.
I will invite Joe. I will do that when I'm sending emails to all the committee chairs.
Yep.
And then also just very quickly go back to, I know Sandy's not here anymore, but the EHIT program closes October 24th and ours is October 27th. I knew the latter, but had to double check on when he attended. And that's what I have for downstream. Yep.
You still need better. I mean,
Well, except they're selling it to the Waterbury EDU program. No, I know, no admin included.
Okay, and no, yes. All right, we have executive sessions on labor negotiations and personnel. If someone's like to take motions.
I move to find the premature public knowledge of labor negotiations and personnel management and place the town of Waterbury to substantial disability.
Second. Motion by King, second by Tori, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
I move to enter executive session and invite the town manager.
So second. Motion by King, second by Tori, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we'll head into executive session at 8:42 p.m. with no action anticipated.